Hello, dear students. Myself, Sunita. Let us continue with today's session, the rest part of the living world. So, what are we going to study today, or what are we going to learn today? So, we'll be learning the last part of the chapter that is about taxonomic aids. So, till now, we have learned about what exactly is living, and we also have understood the characteristic features of living and how the naming system plays a very important role for an organism for the basis of classification, the processes which are involved in the basis of taxonomy, and also we have learned the taxonomic hierarchy where the scientists or the taxonomists use for the systematic arrangement of organisms. And today we'll be learning how they're going to use the taxonomic aids in their process of classification, in their process of research, in their process of preservation, in their processes of further studies, and also in the process of overall for the basis of classification. Okay, so taxonomic aids play a very important role. We'll be understanding the advantages of taxonomic aids and the types of taxonomic aids which are involved in the study of taxonomy, like herbarium, botanical gardens, museums, zoological parks, which are also called as zoos, and the keys, which are called as taxonomy keys. So all these will be learned in today's class. So let us understand what exactly is taxonomic aid. So taxonomy, we know that it is the branch of biology which deals with the identification, naming, classification, and characterization of a living organism. And to understand that particular living organism, we need to, or scientists or the taxonomists have to use these taxonomic aids for their betterment. So there are certain advantages of taxonomic aids. Aids is nothing but which is going to aid or which is a device. It may be a device, right? But here in taxonomic aids, it is not something which we call it as device. So it is a useful property for any taxonomist to understand taxonomy for the taxonomic studies. So let us look into the advantages first and then go ahead with the each individual taxonomic aid. So what are the advantages of taxonomic aids? They are useful in various studies of branches of biology, like they are useful in agricultural studies, they are useful for forestry studies, they are used in industries, they are, by knowing taxonomic aids or by understanding taxonomic aids, we can use them for various bioresources and also to understand the diversity. So taxonomic aids are used in different applied branches of biology. These are all applied branches of biology. So this is the first advantage. Second advantage is the taxonomic aids help in identification. So if we have to identify any organism, taxonomic aids are going to help us in identification. Say, for example, you are in an X place and you need to go to Y place. So X region can be anything like it may be a desert. Y region is somewhere where there are tropical rainforest or there is heavy rainfall. So if you have to know any Y species in the Y region, so you need not travel there and get to know about the particular species or particular plant group or particular animal group which are existing over there. You just have to be in your place, and then the data will be, as and when you require, the data will be uh, received by you. So that is only through the means of taxonomical aids, because identification and collection of these plant and animal species in the Y region would have already been done by any taxonomist. So if you contact a particular taxonomist and ask for this data, then easily it will be available to you. So henceforth, and even you can do the same exchange of information, exchange of knowledge can be done through the taxonomic aids. So henceforth, the second advantage is it is used for identification, collection of plant and animal species, which is essential and prime source of taxonomic study. Either you can receive it and study the data, or you can send them so that they can study the data. Based on that, you can compare the data and analyze for yourself what exactly has been the perspectives of the organisms which have been present over there. And we can even understand about the endemic species, which are the species which are going to be present only in that particular region, okay, or the species which are going to be extinct. So that data can also be analyzed. And some species which are which are in danger, endangered species. So like that, we can classify and distinguish them based on the studies which we have obtained from the data which we have received from any of the taxonomic areas or any of the regions for the taxonomic studies. Next advantage is it is used for classification of organism. So as we know that, say for example, we are going to collect some plant species. So and you know that morphologically they'll be distinguished. The external morphology will be different. So based on that, we can distinguish and group them or classify them accordingly. So for that, it is very, very important. And gathering information especially, and storing it in a particular whether it may be a live specimen, or it may be a dead specimen, or it may be even a preserved specimen. So these specimens are going to serve for the future purpose or future perspectives. And lastly, that is what I was telling you. Preserved specimens are useful for future studies. So you store those specimens, and then it can be not only used for you, but many generations can study this by collection of these specimens. Just like in your schools and colleges, you'll be having these museums, etc., isn't it? They are going to be worth establishing, because they are going to serve not only you and your next coming your generations. For longer generation, it can serve the purpose for the future studies, for mainly the research purposes, or for understanding any of the aspects. So these are some of the advantages of taxonomic aids. Now let us look into one by one. So biologists have discovered so many taxonomic aids. They have established certain procedures and technique to store and preserve these specimens so that they can understand and analyze things even more in a better and a systematic way. So coming to the first taxonomic aid, that is, yeah, we'll first look into what are the different taxonomic aids, and then let's go ahead with one by one. So we are going to study about first herbarium, and then we'll be understanding about few more taxonomic aids like botanical gardens. Then comes manuals, flora, monograph. All these are the taxonomic keys. Okay. Then comes the another group, that is museums, then zoological parks. Okay. So all these are the different taxonomic aids which we are going to learn in today's class. So it's an important topic which we'll be learning, with a lot of questions can be asked from this particular group. Okay. Let's go ahead. So the first one is herbarium. So herbarium, as the word says, herb is something which is regarding or which is related to the plants. Okay, what is herbarium? Herbarium is a storehouse. It's a storehouse, okay, of collected plant specimens, so which are dried, pressed, and preserved on the sheets. Basically, herbarium is a sheet. Herbarium is a sheet. Just like an A4 size, it is even more bigger in size. So herbarium is a sheet where the plant specimens, it may be any type of plant specimen. So you have to collect if you go on a field trip, and then if you collect a plant specimen, it may be a herb, or it may be a shrub, or it may be even a part of a tree. It may be a climber or a creeper, anything. So you need to identify this plant specimen. So what do? You first collect the plant specimen, and then they are dried. So drying in the sense they are sun dried, or they may be using a machine called as a dryer, or they may be pressed between the sheet of a paper, or they may be pressed in between the books, or they may be using the pressing machine to press it, and then later they are going to be preserved on these sheets. So you can see a herbarium sheet where a plant is, especially a part of a plant, it's a herbaceous plant, a small plant, along with the root and the stem and the branches and also the flower has been preserved here. Okay, so what is this advantage of preserving these specimens? Of course, it has a lot of advantages. So, but before understanding advantages, we'll understand some other aspects. So you can also see the table which is present here, isn't it? So with lines. So what is exactly a sheet? This herbarium sheet is not only helping us to preserve the plants, but also to collect the data. Okay, also to collect data. What exactly has to be the information which has to be imprinted over there? The information should be the date of collection. So when exactly was the date of collection? So that has to be mentioned. And then comes the place of collection. So which place it was collected. If possible, the latitude, and the altitude and other important location accessories, like where exactly it was located, and all those things can also be added to this. And then also there is a must mention of English name if known, the common name, English name, and then the local name, whatever language, wherever the plant specimen was picked, from that the local language can be written, and along with that the botanical names have to be mentioned if known. If it is unknown, then probably that will help in searching or for further studies, so that the specimen, if it is recorded in any other parts of the world, can be culminated and then can be taken down, and then it can be written in the herbarium sheet. So botanical name plays a very important role. Along with the botanical name, the family name has to be written, family of that particular plant, like Solanaceae, Anacardiaceae, Poaceae, like that. So the name of the family has to be done, and the collector's name, the person who is collecting, any ex-person who is collecting, his name has to be mentioned in this herbarium sheet. Okay, so these are the important information which have to be gathered and has to be written once the specimen is ready to preserve on the herbarium sheet. Of course, you cannot directly place the plant specimen on the herbarium sheet. First, it has to be dried. Second, it has to be pressed. And later comes the preservation technique on the herbarium sheet. So this herbarium sheet plays a very important role. It acts as a quick referral for taxonomic studies. So if I want to understand about some X plant, then what do? I refer the plant using the herbarium. So using herbarium, I can even gather information from one place to another place. So you can just post this herbarium sheet, or you can just give the herbarium sheet in a photograph or in a photocopy, and then you can give it to some other place. So like that, the exchange of information can happen from one country to another country, from one state to another state, or from one region to another region. So somewhere in some other continent, if there is some plant which is not known, and if the person has already identified in India, then probably that can help him to understand about the plant, about the botanical name, about the family, and then the characteristic features, so that it will be helpful for a person to further undergo the process of classification. So henceforth, all these information is a must in case of herbarium sheet. Then, as I told you, it acts as quick referral systems. Apart from that, it is a storehouse or a repository for future use. So if the person is underdoing the research in case of the particular plant, rose plant, banana plant, or any other plant, then that research can be continued by some other person. So probably this will help in future. So it can be taken as a quick referral for the same person who is studying in that particular institute, or for the person who has collected to gather more information, to gather more facts about the different varieties of the plant. So like that, there are so many criterias for a person to analyze the herbarium, and all these will help for him for the future use. Okay, that is most important. And herbarium sheet cannot be just a sheet which will not be in a proper manner. So it is an accepted system. It is a universal accepted system of classification. So the sheet should be arranged according to the universal accepted system. So it should have genus name, it should have species name, and it should have the family name, and accordingly, based on the alphabetical order you take, so based on the institute how they are going to arrange, that will be overall done by the universally accepted system. So we can say that ICBN plays a very important role. So hope you remember what is ICBN, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. This plays a very important role for giving the system a proper universal acceptance. So universally accepted system of classification will be majorly done with the help of criteria which have been established by ICBN. Okay, so this is regarding herbarium. Now let us look into the next taxonomic category, taxonomic aid, that is botanical gardens. So all of you are familiar with botanical gardens, and I hope you have visited even botanical gardens. The botanical gardens can be created at your house, or it may be through the institutions, or in a even more bigger way. So these are specialized gardens which have collection of plant species for further reference. So any of these plant specimens, they are going to help for further reference. So if you have to identify the botanical names of these plants, so you would have gone to the botanical gardens, and there on the trees or any of the plants, the board would have been there. The board which mentions the name of the plant, the collector's name, the date of collection, and the place of collection, the family name if it is known, and then the economical importance, that is what is the use of this plant, would have also been imprinted over there on the plate, which is nothing but the botanical nameplate on each and every plant. And even the age of the plant sometimes would have also been mentioned over there. Like this, so many informations would be gathered, and then would be there along with the plant or a tree. So this serves as an important reference for many botanists to learn about the plants in different areas. Okay, and it is used for identification purpose, grown for identification purpose. So if there is some explant which is present there, and the person who has an institute who doesn't know that, probably some person or some other place would have the same plant, and that will be helpful for him to know the plant. So it will be easy for him to identify, because the person who has already known this would have definitely passed on the information. Like this, it is used for identification purpose. So even we have got a chance of learning, isn't it? So we can go to botanical gardens, learn about the plants, learn about the families, learn about the nature of the plants or nature of the trees, etc. So specialities of these trees, some of them are highly economically important, they are commercially used. All these plants which are medicinally used, so they can be brought into notice. Okay, then each plant is labeled with botanical or scientific name along with the family, that is mandatory. And along with that, there can be a lot of other information, as I told you, like age of the tree or the place of collection and some importance of this plant. So history behind the plant. So like that, any of the other information can also be printed over there. So some important botanical gardens have to be remembered, like Kew Botanical Garden, which is the largest botanical garden. Kew Botanical Garden is called as Royal Botanical Garden. It's called as Royal Botanical Garden, which is situated in Kew. Kew is a place in England or London. Then comes Indian Botanical Garden, which is in Howrah, that is Kolkata in India. Then comes National Research Institute, we can call it as NRI in Lucknow, India. So these are the three important botanical gardens. So I hope whichever place you are in, so you will be knowing a lot of botanical gardens here and there. Okay, so but these three are the important botanical gardens which have to be known or which have to be remembered. So this is it regarding the botanical gardens. And remember one more thing about botanical gardens. Botanical gardens can be a collection of, it can be also a collection of endemic and exotic species. It can be a collection of endemic and exotic species. Endemic means it is subjected to that particular place. We can say it as localized. It can be localized. Whereas the exotic species is from the different parts of the region other than that region. So it can be something which is called as the foreign species, or the new species to that particular locality, so which is called as exotic species. So this can also have the collection of endemic and exotic species, along with the medicinal plants, insectivorous plants, and also the plants which are which have been collected from different areas. So this is regarding botanical gardens. Now there's a picture. Yes, so you can see the tree. On the tree, the labeling has been given with regard to the plant name and the place, and also the family has been mentioned here. Okay. Yes, we'll go ahead with the next taxonomical aid, that is museum. So you all are familiar with museum. So museum can be a collection of preserved plant and animal specimens. Botanical gardens are only with regard to the plants. Herbarium is only with regard to the plants. But whereas in case of museum, you see both the collection of preserved plant and animal specimens. So plants and animal specimens can be collected and they can be preserved for, the first one is for their studies. Okay, they can be used for studies. The second one is for quick reference. Quick referral can be done using the plant or animal species. So plants or animal species have to be preserved. How are they going to be preserved? They can be preserved using different ways. So the first way for preservation is that they can be preserved in containers. You would have seen so many of these specimens like snakes or different types of reptiles, or maybe the plant and the animal specimens which are called as live specimens. You just pluck them from the area and then you're going to preserve them. The live specimens, these live specimens can be, these live specimens can be preserved in the bottles. So that is one thing, but that is the first technique of preserving. How do they preserve? They have to sustain for a longer period of time, isn't it? Or they have to, they cannot dry, or they cannot just decay over there. So they have to be preserved in a container or jars which are having preservative solutions. So you would have seen some of the solutions which would have been kept over there, and that solution serves for the life for all these live specimens. So they can be preserved for longer period of time, and the solution of course have to be changed again and again so that they will not change the characteristic feature of these live specimens. So that is the first preservative technique. The second is that they can be preserving even dry specimens. So dry specimens like bones and other things can also be used for the specimens to be preserved over there. They are called as dry specimens. You need not preserve them in the solutions, right? So they are dry specimens. And then comes the specimens, especially with regard to the insects. What do we do with regard to insects? First, insects are collected. So the insects are first collected. After collecting, they are going to be preserved. How they are going to be preserved? Obviously, the live insect cannot be, the living insect cannot be preserved, isn't it? It will, lot of chances are there to for it to fly or escape from the area. So henceforth, the insects are going to be killed. They are going to be killed, and after killing, they are going to be pinned. Say, for example, if this is a butterfly, if this is a butterfly, and then this beautiful species of butterfly will have some some specialized characteristic feature, and they have to be preserved. So what do? We are going to kill this butterfly. Killing in the sense, if we just have to pin them, so you can just pin them on this side, pin them here, and pin it here. So you're going to pin it, and then you're going to put it in a box. Okay, pin it and put it in a box. So this method is used for most of the insects, right? So most of the insects, winged, especially majority of the arthropods, where the collection of the specimens are done. After collection, killing and pinning is done. Later it can be subjected to preservation. Using the cotton or on the box, it can be preserved, right? So this is the third method of preservation. Then comes the fourth method. So the fourth method can be the stuffed specimens. So these specimens may be larger animals. The larger animals can be birds or mammals. Generally, the flesh of these specimens will be removed, and then the exoskeleton, okay, the exoskeleton or the outer skeleton, it may be the wings or the feathers in case of the birds, or with regard to the mammals like rabbits and other mammals. So the fur can be retained, and the stuffings can be done. So these stuffings basically will be having preservative solutions, which are stuffed in the fiber, or it may be in the form of cotton and anything. So these preservatives will be inserted inside the organism, and later they are going to be looking just like a live organism, but inside they will be having some stuffed preserved material, so that they can sustain for a longer period of time. The endoskeleton will be removed, but the exoskeleton, everything else will be retained as such. So henceforth, this is one of the technique for preserving larger animals. Then comes the last method, that is the collection of skeletons of animals. So long ago, you know that they were rhinoceros, trinoceros and all. Even now we can see in some of the museums, the specimens which have been kept, their bones are their skeletal system. So their existence was remarkable because of the fossils, which were known, right, which was like studied. So based on that, the fossil remains of all these specimens will be collected in the museum and kept for the display, or they will also be kept for the future studies. So henceforth, museum plays a very important role for both plant and also for animal specimen, for study and future reference, or for their research purposes. So this is it regarding the museum. Now let us go ahead with the next taxonomic aid. You can see the picture here of the museum, which has the collected specimen of the dinosaurs along with the whole part of the skeletal system. Okay. Then comes zoological parks or zoos. So zoos are something which are very fascinating, where they are very attractive regions, because zoo is not a natural habitat. It is an artificial habitat which have been created by the human, which have been taken care by human, so that we can understand about these animals which are present in the wildlife. So zoo or zoological parks are the places where wild animals are kept in protected environments under the human care, which enable us to learn about their food habits. So from zoo, what are we going to learn? Of course, it's very attractive to the small kids, no doubt. But it is not only that, it also helps in understanding the behavior of the animal. It also helps in understanding the food habits, their routine, their nature, and everything. So as zoologist majorly has a lot of advantage in understanding about these animals, so that it will be helpful for the person to classify the organism based on their behavior, based on their morphology, based on their other aspects, right? So henceforth, zoo plays a very important role as a major taxonomic aid. And here the conditions for the survival of any animal has to be just like the natural habitat. Otherwise it would be difficult for an organism to survive. Habitat here refers to the dwelling place. Say for example, if it is a polar bear, which we have to protect it in a zoo, then obviously the polar bear needs that particular temperature. So the temperature should be lowered, and the cage or whatever the place which have been created for it has to be the same, almost the same, because the chances of survivability will be very, very less if it is not having a natural habitat. The creation of natural habitat in case of these animals is very much important. So that is why it plays a very important role. The conditions are very much necessary to create a natural habitat. Then obviously we know that the children love visiting zoos, and these are the attractive places for the students, the small children, to learn about the animals which are there existing in and around them, right? So this is a picture which is given in your NCERT with regard to the zoos. So you have to identify the picture if it is given in an MCQ question. So there are a lot of zoos. You need not write about the zoos anyways, because there are a lot of zoos which are present all over as a habitat which has been created naturally. Right. So one of the conservation techniques which is used is zoological parks. So it can conserve the endangered species, it can conserve the vulnerable species which is going to be in danger, or it can also conserve the species which are endemic to that particular region. Okay, if the number is reducing, it can also be helping in conservation. So you can add a point, it also helps in, it's a conservation technique. Okay, right. Let's move on to the next one, that is key. So key is also called as taxonomic key. It's also called as taxonomic key. So what is key? Key is a taxonomical aid. We know that other than the museums, the zoological parks, botanical gardens, museum, herbarium, key is again another type of taxonomic aid. Why is it used? It is used for identification of plants and animals. So plants and animals heading is coming under even museums, and plants and animals is a heading which is even involved with regard to taxonomic key. So taxonomic key is used as a taxonomic aid for identification of plants and animal species or animal specimens based on the similarities and dissimilarities. So this plays a very important role for the process of classification. This plays a very important role for the process of classification. Let us understand what exactly what are we going to refer it to as key. Key is not something which is physically there, just like your lock and key which you use for any of your vehicles or for doors or etc. So it is not a key is not something which is analytical. Okay, so it is just a statement. So there, what type of statements? The statements are based on similarities and dissimilarities. Similarities and dissimilarities means what? So let's take an example. Let's look into example. So say for example, now we have identified that organism as an X organism. The organism is said to be an X organism. So we don't know the name of this organism. What do we do if we don't know the name of the organism? How are we going to identify and classify? So what do? We start listing out the characteristic features. So by seeing the organism, we can characterize, saying that, okay, morphological characters are as follows. Morphological characters are as follows. So what are the morphological characters? Say, for example, you see the eyes are present. There are two eyes with eyelids. Then comes maybe the limbs. There are 4 limbs. Then the exoskeleton is made up of hair or fur, right? So like this, the characteristic features we have to go on mentioning it as number 1, number 2, like that. So the naming should be given in a numbering system. And then after that, we are going to see whether it is matching the animal. So let us look into the X animal. If we have to say an X animal, let us assume this as a bird. Okay, this as a bird. First phenomenon is according to our statement, the first one is eyes. Does it have eyes? Yes. Does it have eyelids? Yes. Second one, does it have limbs? What type of limbs? We have to write it. And then comes hair or fur. Whether it is made up of hair or fur? No. It is made up of the exoskeleton, that is feathers. Now, there are two important statements here for the same character, that is exoskeleton. If the exoskeleton is taken as one of the character for this X animal, it may be two possibilities. One is it is having hair or fur. The next thing is the skeleton, it is the feathers, right? So we know that this X is having the feathers. So this one, hair or fur, will be a rejected statement. It will be a rejected statement. And the feathers will be considered as a statement which has been accepted. So for the same character, they can be two or more contrasting characters, which are generally in the form of pair. And that is called as couplet. Okay, coupled, we can say couple is nothing but the pair of contrasting characters. Based on this contrasting character, we are going to analyze whether the particular organism is going to belong to whether the first category or the second category. The first one here, it is rejected, we call it as a rejected statement. The other one, which is accepted, we call it as an accepted statement. So in other words, the statement which is both these statements which are going to be accepted or rejected, basically it is called as a lead statement. Okay, it is called as lead statement. So accepted statement or the rejected statement is called as lead statement. And out of these lead statement, one will be accepted, another one will be rejected. And these two statements will have the pair of contrasting characters which are called as couplet. And they have lot of, see, this is one just example which I've given. Likewise, there are so many examples you can take. The presence of beak, the absence of beak, the presence of bones, the absence of bones. So starting from morphological to anatomical characters or the internal characters, any of these characters can be utilized for the identification of plant and animal specimen. So based on these similarities and dissimilarities, we are going to identify using a taxonomic aid, and that taxonomic aid is called as key, right? Next, these taxonomic keys, what is the importance? What is the importance of this taxonomic key? So taxonomic key plays a very important role because they are required for each taxonomic category. Now just look into the picture and analyze. Here there are vertebrata. So in case of the vertebrates, especially the phylum, there are different phylums which come under, or class which comes under the category. For each category, for each identification purpose, key plays a very important role. Now the first question is, does it have fur? Right? So yes, it is having a fur. And the other opposite contrasting character will be no, it doesn't have a fur. If it is having a fur, we can refer it to as mammal. If no, then we'll further undergo the process of classification. Next question is, does it have feather? Yes, it has feather. If it is having feather, then we can estimate that it is a bird. So if it doesn't have, this is a rejected statement, we have to analyze for some other organism. So next question is, does it have dry skin? In case of reptiles, yes, it has dry skin. In case of the other group, it is no. Then no, under no category. So there are even other organisms which does not have dry skin, just like your fishes, they do not have dry skin, but they have scales which are present on them. So scales which are present, then we are grouping under them as fishes. Scales, if it is not present, then we group them under amphibians. Okay. So likewise, the statements have been accepted or it may be rejected based on the similarities and the differences between the characters, and these characters are going to help us for understanding a organism, which may be a plant or it may be animal. Or let me take one more example of plant specimen. So if a plant specimen is, we'll just understand with the root system. So if this plant specimen is having the thick root, which is having more or less more number of branches, the tuft branches are present, right? And what type of root it is? So the first statement is whether it is a fibrous root or if it is a taproot. So this will be the first statement. So if the root is fibrous root, then the fibrous root is a type of root where it is going to arise not from the radicle, but other parts other than the radicle. So the main root here will be branched into the tuft of roots, right? So this X plant is said to be having the fibrous root. So this will be an accepted statement, but this will be a rejected statement. So henceforth, key is said to be analytical in nature because it is not something where it is which we can see it or which we can like which we can feel it or which we can analyze it. It's just an analytical in nature. So we just have to record it with the observations based on the observable characters which are present in the keys, right? So this is one thing. This is the major thing which we have to understand regarding keys. Like keys, there are so many other taxonomical aids. With the help of key, we can understand and analyze the other taxonomic groups. Okay, so we'll now understand about the different taxonomic groups, which includes the floras, the manuals, the monograph, and the catalogs. Okay, so these are the important taxonomic keys which are going to help us to describe an organism. It is going to help us to describe an organism. It is going to help us to describe the habitat. It is going to help us to describe the distribution or the locality. Okay, and also it helps us to understand the complete details. Okay, complete details of the plants. Basically, flora, manuals, monograph, and catalogs, all these are the taxonomic keys which are used, details of the specimens. Okay, all these are used for various purposes. Now we'll understand one by one what exactly is flora, what exactly is manual, and what exactly is monograph. Okay, first one is flora. So what is a flora? See, there are two meanings for flora. One is flora is itself called as plants. Instead of plants, we refer it to as flora. With regard to animals, we call it as fauna. That is one meaning. The other meaning here is flora is a document which is in the form of book. It's in the form of book. And what does this book comprises of? What information does this book has? Okay, so it is nothing but it records the plants which are found in particular area. So what is flora important for? Flora is important because it is going to help us to understand the plants which are present in that particular area, or it is called as habitat. Okay, as I told you, habitat is a dwelling place of the organism. So plants which are found in a specific area. So any area you take, the flora can be obtained, or the book which contains the information about that particular habitat can be obtained. Let us assume that we are going to take the flora of Karnataka, flora of Tamil Nadu, flora of Maharashtra, or flora of India. So this book will have the information about the region, about different plant species, about their nature, about their habitat, about their morphology, about their anatomy, about their special features. The whole description will be there in that particular book of that particular region. So you can take it for your own locality. If you're in X locality, you can make a flora. So what all the number of species are present? Say for example, grass species. How many grass species are present? Coconut tree, mango tree, neem tree. So all, like that, so many of the information which can be gathered of the particular area can be done using flora. So when you open the flora of your region, you can just analyze that so many plants are there, so many different varieties of plants are there, the species variation can be found over there, and the information based on the plants can be gathered. So that is called as the flora. Okay, then comes the next group, that is the manual. So you would have known, whenever you take any electronic devices, you get a book which is going to be gathering information about that particular usage of the description of that particular item, isn't it? Any electronic device. So just like that, manual, here manual refers to a book. It is also same. It is also a book which contains the information or gathers the information of many plants. Okay, in any area, in an area there are many plants. Manuals describe each and every plant there. So you are going to have a culmination of detailed study. Flora will be not much in detail because it is going to be describing about the region. So manual plays a very important role in describing each and every plant specimen over there. So like if you take an X plant, tell about it describes about the root, it describes about the root system, it describes about the modification of the root, it describes about the stem, the height of the stem, the color of the stem, I mean the nature of the stem, and then the branches, the color of the flower, the position of the flower, the structure of the flower, and then the parts which are present there, the number of gynoecium, number of androecium, the even the cotyledons, like that. Into details, the manuals are going to provide an information for particular plant specimen. Okay, that is the difference between flora and manual. Both are books. Flora is something which is huge, which contains the information gathered of the particular habitat, but that habitat description, even more in a elaborated manner, will be provided by the manuals, right? Let's go ahead with the next key, that is monograph. The word mono means one. The word graph is something which will represent. It's a representation. So here monograph is something related to an information of any one taxon. It may be any one taxon, that is called as monograph. Let us look into the taxon. For example, the taxon may be Mangifera. We know that Mangifera is a taxon for a category called as genus. So the whole information will be only on Mangifera. Like that, many such taxons can be done. So it is, monograph is an information, a detailed information. Okay, the information will be in very much detailed information about any one taxon. So like this, I can make indica as one of the taxon, can make caucus as one of the taxon, I can make panthera as one of the taxon. not only at genus species level, starting from the species up to the kingdom level, the taxon can be in an elaborated descriptive manner. So I can do the Solanum, Panthera, can do a taxon on Solanaceae. So likewise, there are a lot of taxons which can be made, and this taxon gives an important role in descriptive type of the whole description which is given for a particular taxon. That is monograph. And lastly, we'll be understanding about catalogs. So you would have gone to any of your library and you have a library card. So the librarian, what does she or he do is, he'll take those information of that particular book, the author's name, the date of receipt and all those things, and also the date of borrowing and then the date of giving. So all these information will be there in the library card, and that cards will be there kept in a separate block, so that it will be helpful for a person to identify. Just like that, catalogs are playing a very important role as a taxonomy key, where it contains all kinds of species found in a particular area. So just like information of so many books you'll be having in that particular catalog book, like that, even here catalog plays a very important role, where all kinds of species are found in particular area. So it is not only one or two, it's not just like monograph having only one particular information, but catalogs play as an important role in having the information of all different species found in the particular area. It should be a particular habitat, only that particular habitat, the number of species will be recorded over there, and that will be used for the future studies. So all these preservation techniques to understand the distribution, habitat, and to understand or analyze any plant or animal specimen, taxonomic aid plays a very important role. So taxonomists use taxonomic aids or taxonomic keys as their important tool for helping them in identification, categorization, and also for the classification purposes. Okay, so this is regarding the taxonomic aids. Now we'll look into some of the questions pertaining to taxonomic aids. First question: herbarium sheets are arranged according to the system of classification and should have information about what? So as we discussed, the herbarium sheets are arranged according to the system of classification, universal system of classification, and it should have a detailed name, like name of the plant, botanical name, local name, English name, family name, collector's name, the date of collection, and place of collection. So henceforth, among the four, the suitable option here is option D, because here they have given as phylum is added, and here there is class is added, here order is added, but most importantly, the herbarium sheet should have the family name. Okay, so rest all others are same. Next, Royal Botanical Garden, or nothing but the botanical garden, most important botanical garden, that is the famous botanical garden which is present at England, is located in Kew, right? So it is located in Kew, which is called as Royal Botanical Garden. In Royal Botanical Garden, it seems there is a separate section for herbarium. So herbarium itself has a separate section, and they have lot of plants and animal specimens which have been collected since so many years. Okay, they have a lot of ancient evidences for the preservation techniques which they have been following even now. They have plenty of millions of the plant and animal specimens which have been recorded. Next one, the statement that is not true regarding museum is what? Specimens are preserved in containers or jars in preservative solutions. Insects are preserved in insect boxes after collecting, but without killing and pinning. Plant and animal specimens may be also preserved as dry specimens. That is true. Larger animals like birds and mammals are stuffed and preserved. This is also true. This is also true. And even this is also true. But this is false. Why is it false? We know that insects have to be preserved in insect boxes, right? After collecting, they have to be killed. Killing and pinning plays a very important role. Otherwise, the specimen cannot be preserved for a longer period of time. So henceforth, here the option which is not true or wrong is the option second. Next question. A place where dried, pressed and preserved specimens are kept is known as. We all know that a place where dried, pressed and preserved specimens are kept is called as herbarium, right? Herbarium is a place, it is a storehouse. It's a storehouse of what? It is a storehouse of collection of plant specimens which are dried, pressed and preserved. So henceforth it is option A. Next question is taxonomic key. Taxonomic key is one of the taxonomic tools. We all know that taxonomic key is one of the taxonomic tools. Tools are nothing but, we can even call it as taxonomic aids, which is used in identification, classification of plants and animals. So it is used in preparation of what? So taxonomic key, one of the taxonomic key which is used in taxonomic aid, it is used in identification of and collection of plant and specimens. So it is used in what type of preparation? First one is monograph, second one is flora, option C is both A and B, option D is none of these. So according to the study, we know that monograph is the taxonomic key which is used for collecting the detailed information of any one taxon, right? It is used for identification and it is also used for classification of plants and animals. Second one is flora. Flora is a book, or flora is a taxonomic aid which is used in collecting for identification and classification of plants species, majorly for that is which has an account of in detail account of habitat and also for the distribution of plants of a given area, right? So which is the option, both A and B or none of these? So which among the following is used here as a taxonomic key is the question. So we know that both flora and monograph are used for detailed study, isn't it? So henceforth we have to mark it as option C, right? Next question. Of course, flora is only regarding the plants, and most of the time even monograph can be anything. It may be plants or animals. Okay, so here classification of plants is plants and animals. You can even mark this as monograph, but if we have to consider both only plants, then you can answer it as only flora. So I would like to change here. You can just mark it as monograph. Okay. Next question. Which of the following statements about taxonomical aid are true? First one, keys are used to identify plants and animals based on similarities and dissimilarities. So we need to see which is true regarding the taxonomical aids. Keys are used for identifying plants and animals based on similarities and dissimilarities. That is right. Flora contains the account of habitat and distribution of plants in a given area. Yes, that is right. Flora provides an index to plant species found in a particular area. So you know that it is found in index to particular area will not be done by flora, but it will be done by the manuals along with the flora. So henceforth this option is also right. Lastly, monograph provide information for identifying the species found in an area. We know that monograph is the one which is going to give us a detailed description on any one taxon. So except for fourth option, all the other three statements were right. So henceforth here the option will be 1, 2 and 3 only. Next question. Dash are useful in providing information for identification and varieties of species found in an area. So which among the following taxonomic key is used as the key or a tool for providing information for identification of varieties of species found in an area? So we know that the one which is going to be providing the information of a particular habitat is going to be flora. So henceforth the option is D. Next question. The taxonomic aid that provides information for the identification of names of species found in an area. So in an area has been asked here. So the detailed information of that particular species, identification of that particular species is found in an area, and that will be provided by the manual. So henceforth it is option B. Next question. Zoological parks are the places. This is a statement and there are two statements. The first part of the statement is we have to understand whether it is true or false. The second part is we have to analyze whether the second statement is giving the justification for the first statement. Okay, whether it is the correct explanation of the first statement. So the first statement goes like this. Zoological parks are the places where wild animals are kept in protected environment under human care. Yes, absolutely yes, right? Animals in zoological parks enable us to learn about their food habits and behavior. This statement is also right. But is it a correct explanation? Zoological parks are the places where wild animals are kept in protected environment under human care. That is, the statements are right, but the statement 2 is not the correct explanation for statement 1. Henceforth, it is option B. Okay. So going ahead with the last question. The last question is you need to identify the given diagram and choose appropriate options. So the given diagram shows us what? Is it botanical garden showing stored specimens? Is it museums showing stored specimens? Is it herbarium showing stored specimens, or it is library showing stored specimen? Obviously the library have to be ruled out, and you know that botanical gardens have it has to be outside, and even the museums, you know that it is not something where it is only storing certain sheets of paper. So henceforth it is herbarium. So you can see the sheets which are arranged according to the universal system one by one, and that will be acting as a storehouse for the preserved plant specimens. Okay, so we have indeed learned today and completed the chapter that is living world. Thank you, students. Meet you in the next video.